So Final Fantasy has been known to have some great stories, some great characters. There are some up and downs across the series, but today we're going to be talking about which one of the protagonists are my favorite. I'm going to rate them in a tier list, and I'm going to let you know who barely had a personality pixel to spare and who had some of the greatest stories. And before you start coming at me, this person's the best, or Squall should be higher, or whatever the case may be, this is my ranking, my chaos. And if you disagree, let's talk about it in the comments and let me know. So let's dive in. Let's talk about which Final Fantasy protagonist is the best and who's the worst. So I'm not going to go in order by game. I'm going to start at my bottom rankings and work my way up to the top. So as I said, we wouldn't be starting in order. However, we are going to start with Final Fantasy 1 and its main protagonist, the Warrior of Light. The Warrior of Light, we can be honest, is not a character. He is just a template. So I'm going to put him at the bottom. Without the Warrior of Light, we wouldn't have the rest of the Final Fantasy. So we need to thank him for his work, but we will be putting him at the bottom of the list. He did get some personality in Dissidia if you did play any of those. So we're going to put him down in D. Firion and the crew, while very well dressed, were really more archetypes than personalities. The plot really did the heavy lifting for most of Final Fantasy II. I'm going to put him in D also, but further back than the Warrior of Light. Originally with Final Fantasy III, we didn't have much of a defined character. However, the DS version did give us Luneth, and he's fine. That's probably the nicest way I can say it. So I think with that, we can put him in a C. Next, we're going to skip over to Final Fantasy V and Bartz. Look, Bartz isn't bad. It's just, he's just there, you know? The best thing about it is he had a Chocobo best friend that followed him around, so that was nice and cute. He had a cheerful attitude and more personality than anyone we've listed so far, so I'm going to put him in C, but at the first position. There we go. I like that. All right, so next we will talk about FF4 and its protagonist, which is Cecil. To me, Cecil is the first real main character in a Final Fantasy. Paladin arc, he had a redemption story, but when I try to stack him against some of my other more favorites, he does just kind of fall in the middle of the pack for me. So we're going to put him in B. Next, we're going to skip to Final Fantasy VIII with Squall. Hot take, Squall is not as deep as people make him out to be. Yes, he has growth through the story, he learns to open up, but I don't think he's that deep. The whatever attitudes for most of the game really just made him feel more like a meme than anything close to a masterpiece. So I'm going to put him up here in B, but he'll be behind Cecil. So this one is probably going to be more controversial. I'm going to go to Final Fantasy 13 and we're going to talk about Lightning. Now this is on me. I have only played the first game and her personality was not that riveting in the first one. The story was good, the surrounding characters were okay. I hear all of that gets better as the story progresses. However, I've only played the first one, so that's where we're basing this. Honestly, the original Lightning was like, hey, let's make Cloud, but as a girl with pink hair and crankier. So that's the feeling that I got from Lightning the first time around. I will put her above Squall though, but behind Cecil. I liked Squall's supporting cast way more than Lightning's. Okay, so now we're going to skip to FF12. FF12 was one of my favorites, but as far as Vaan and being the protagonist, I think he was completely overshadowed by Balthier, and I think a lot of people would make an argument that Vaan actually isn't the main character. They would probably say Ash. He also had a very young teen optimistic kind of feel, which didn't make him that deep. So we're going to put him in B, but we're going to put him behind everybody else. We're going to skip the MMOs. We're going to skip 11 and 14. We have some of the people here to denote them, but they're MMOs. We're not going to do them, so skip past those. Okay, so now we're going to jump to Final Fantasy 15. Okay, 15 was a unique journey. I did like it. I liked the little road trip aspect. As the game went on, the story really got a lot better, and Noctis himself really had a great journey as he progressed from boy who did not want a crown to a true leader, true loyal supporter of his friends and family. I like Noctis a lot, so we're going to put him up in A. So then we're going to talk about Final Fantasy VII. Final Fantasy VII, if I just went off the original game, Cloud probably wouldn't be as high. Cloud was barely a step above Squall in terms of personality for me. To me, Cloud was just angry a lot in the original. However, with the remake, I have a newfound appreciation for Cloud. I think Cloud's iconic because he's messy, he has an identity crisis, he's really struggling to figure things out about himself and as well as these people that he's picked up around him. And also, I think he lived through one of the most iconic things in video games with Aerith. So I'm gonna put him in A, and I'm gonna put him above Noctis. There we go. Next, we're going to go to Final Fantasy X. This can be a controversial take as well, but I honestly think Tidus deserves more love. I think he was a great protagonist. I think, yeah, he started off as really goofy, really silly, hard to take him serious. But as that story went on, how he grew with everyone around him and his relationship with Yuna, I think that was really, really great. And let's be honest, that laugh scene was probably top tier meme. However, his ending is brutal and emotional, and I think it's perfect. So I'm going to put him above Cloud. I'm going to go ahead and put these two down here. Okay, so now we're in our top three. The top three Final Fantasy protagonists to me. We have Terra, we have Zidane, and we have Clive. One of these people I'm still going to put in A tier, and the other ones I'm going to put in the S tier. This person, to me, will be at the top of A tier. And as a new kid on the block, I think Clive came out swinging and really proved himself on his journey through Final Fantasy 16. Clive and crew showed that Final Fantasy still had the chops to tell a good story. It was dark, it was riveting, it was emotional, it was grounded, and just an absolute powerhouse. I loved 16, and Clive was a big part of that. And Clive's gonna come right up in here to the top of A. So here we go. Who is my favorite Final Fantasy protagonist, and who do I put in second place? We have Terra and Zidane. So my number 2 is actually going to be Zidane Tribal. To me, Zidane was the anti-Cloud. Everything that I didn't like about Cloud was fixed and turned around with Zidane. Zidane was cheerful, optimistic, and charming, yet his existential breakdown through Final Fantasy IX was such a good story. One of the most raw, most emotional gut punches throughout the whole series. Truly a king in every sense, without the crown. So my number 1, with no contest, leaps and bounds above the other protagonists to me, is going to be Terra. Terra is everything Final Fantasy does best. Identity, love, belonging, compassion. She's not just strong, and I would even say one of the strongest Final Fantasy protagonists, but she's strong of heart as well. Final Fantasy VI may be an ensemble, but Terra is the soul of the group. So we're going to put Terra right on up here, right above Zidane. So this is what it's looking like. Terra and Zidane at the top, some of the earliest Final Fantasies down at the bottom, and then we aren't going to count the MMOs. Clive, I would say, is in the top 3, followed by Tidus, Cloud, and Noctis. But there you have it. That's my ranking of every Final Fantasy protagonist, from the blank slates, the Warrior of Light, to my absolute queen, Terra. Now here's where you come in. I want your list. Let me know who your top 5 is. Let me know if someone's criminally underrated. Let's put it in the comments, because I know half of you are about to fight me because I put Squall in the mid tier. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share so we can continue this conversation. Remember, you matter, nerds, and I'll talk to you later.